Hey everyone, my name's Nick. I'm the CEO of Doc, and welcome to our 2023 year in review. It's intended to be an informal chat amongst some of the leaders here at Doc. So myself, we have Elina, our COO, we have Mike, our head of engineering, and Richard, our head of product. Hey guys, I hope you're all well. We're kind of all looking forward to the holidays coming up in the not too distant future. And through the course of this conversation, we'll each spend a little bit of time covering some of our kind of areas of expertise. So we'll look at things like the market generally, look at adoption and growth, what we've been seeing here at Doc, looking at partnerships and some of the clients that we have, some of the tech milestones for the year. And of course, as we go through all this, we'll interject with thoughts and aspirations that we have for 2024. So hopefully you'll all find that interesting. So I'll kick things off looking at some of the macro environment things that will impact upon some of the activities that we'll undertake inside Doc, and also probably broadly dictate adoption across the space as well. How many companies and how many individuals are starting to use the technology that we're building. And so we're living in a shift over kind of the last 100 or so years in terms of how we use identity and how it's given to us. So probably early 1900s, it would have been very commonplace. I think the only form of identity would be hard copy forms of government-backed identity that was given to us. And then it took the guts of 100 years to then move to a world of single-use digital identity, where we start to verify government-backed identities, sometimes online with identity verification providers. And it's been that way probably relatively unchanged. There's been some improvements, but really working that way for the last decade or more. And now what we're starting to see the shift into is reusable digital identities. And so this is identity that's maybe given for one purpose that we can reuse elsewhere. And this shift that we're starting to see now is going to absolutely impact everything. And so we can see some examples of this around MasterCards have got digital identity in place, the European Digital ID. We spoke to True ID Anders, the CEO there. He's working heavily with Sweden's Bank ID, which is going to be huge. And of course, Alaska Airlines ID, because we're starting to see reusable ID come into kind of different travel use cases as well. And of course, mobile driver's licenses, we cannot forget those. They're being used a lot across kind of California, Utah, and starting to see those across other parts of the world as well. And more often than not, these technological changes are generally driven by a desire for greater efficiency, and of course for organizations, of course, that they'll try and make money. And so some of the factors that we're seeing are things like KYC, know your customer costs, are rising significantly year on year. I think we're seeing that around about 20% or so. Also, there's a backdrop of drop-off rates in terms of onboarding onto platforms. So when we go through these KYC checks, we're seeing very high drop-off rates, often kind of 40-45%. And of course, the one that we're all aware of, which is kind of rising ID theft. So those are kind of some of the main highlights I would draw out. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts or comments about any of that stuff. I know I went through quite a lot there.
As you talk about these larger market trends, it's interesting to see this has been building for a long time, and some of these regulations and government initiatives are finally coming to impact people in real world businesses. And it's fun to have that technology ready as the world's finally ready.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Totally agree. Yeah, so and some of the other stuff that we're starting to see as well are not just some of the macro factors that are happening, but we're also seeing kind of major organizations, governments, and also kind of industry analysts that tend to keep their fingers on the pulse and know what's happening. The topic of decentralized identity and how we manage these identities is coming up increasingly more. And so, if you look at some of the analyst reports, people like Liminal, which is a kind of specialist in the research space, and these figures can be taken with a pinch of salt. We don't really know. It's very hard to predict if these will happen. And of course, even if they are actually happening, But they're seeing what they believe to be an addressable market of about $33 billion a year today. And then they can potentially see that growing up to well over $250 billion by 2027, 28, which is a growth rate, a compound annual growth rate of over 65%. So they are extremely bullish about the space, although, of course, you would expect them to be given their role in things. And so Gartner's another one, obviously very well respected, very well known research analyst and consultancy. And there, if we look at I talked at the start about that single use identity verification, they're actually starting to predict that we'll see that decrease by 20% over the next 3 or 4 years, under the belief that actually reusable identity will pick up that slack. So they're expecting the reusable stuff to really start to impact upon that kind of market space just now. So much, much more reusable identity. And of course, we've got the EU directive coming through from the EIDAS stuff that everyone's talked about endlessly, where the 27 EU member states are now going to be legally required or are legally required to provide identity wallets for their citizens. And there are many, many other examples, including, of course, organizations like LinkedIn, owned by Microsoft, kind of bringing in VC-based workplace verifications. Of course, LinkedIn is millions and millions of us use it. And so it's an example of where we're starting to potentially see some of this mass adoption of this technology coming through. I don't know if you guys have any other examples or any thoughts about any of that.
I agree. I think it's exciting to see the kind of the pressure of adoption coming from different areas. I think it's really easy to look to government a lot of times with these things to be the one who has a big impact. I think seeing Microsoft going behind it, I know there's a lot of financial institutions, a lot of kind of state governments in the US. So I think that's really telling that it's not just kind of one of these, large parties, large organizations, but it's really coming at us from all different directions. And I think that's where a lot of organizations are going to feel, the confidence to really start putting resources behind this, seeing how it's going to actually change how they do offer their services and their products.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing that on the technology side a little bit more too. Like I know this year I feel Google and some of the other big players have gotten more involved with Open Wallet Foundation and some of the other standards and things too, to sort of work towards the adoption and bring the technology up to where we can satisfy those business cases that we're talking about and make it easier. So I think you're right. It's sort of the growth is coming all over and the push is happening across the board, which is nice to see.
Yeah, both really good points. And I liked your one as well, Elina, about how we're seeing it come from. It's not just one place that we're seeing this come from. It's from all over, and that would typically be a very strong sign. It doesn't need just one thing to happen. There's many, many things that are happening. So, and it's an exciting time to be alive and be part of the identity space. There's never a boring day at the office for us, which is great.
It's been interesting at Doc. We've had a few conversations with customers recently where they've said, I don't understand VCs, but my customers demand that I start supporting them. And that's new. I haven't had that experience in the last few years. So it's been fun to, 3 times, at least twice over the last couple of months, somebody's come and said more or less those words.
Yeah, so the word is definitely getting out there, Richard. And then I think that's impacting upon what we're actually seeing on our platform at Doc. So growth has been significant. So as much as this is a kind of look at 2023, we'll also touch a little bit in 2024, but we'll also look back just to keep things confusing. Important to look back at what happened in 2022 in terms of understanding, what growth do we see in the current year. And so we've seen kind of growth, just looking at some of the figures here, an almost 84% increase in signups onto our platform in 23 versus 22. And of course, we would caveat that by saying that signups, we're a B2B company primarily, and signups in every case doesn't always mean there's a company at the end of that. Of course, there's inquisitive people. So if we think those numbers look ridiculously high, they're probably higher than the number of customers that are maybe seriously considering Doc. But nonetheless, it does show that there's an increasing desire to understand the space much, much more. Elina will touch on it. I don't want to tread on her toes too much as well. Elina will maybe get into a little bit around the kind of client-based growth that we've seen but we've definitely seen that, and it's been kind of quite impressive, certainly in percentage terms as well as real numbers. And generally, the signals that we're seeing from the market and the capabilities that we now have, the features that we have, we are very, very optimistic about 2024, which is really good to see. And I'm definitely optimistic and hopeful that it's going to be the best year that we ever have, but I'm pretty confident will be. So I don't know if you guys have what's your perspectives on any of the user numbers and general feeling of optimism or pessimism that you have about the space?
I feel great about this year. I think it's been really exciting to see, customers that we started talking to 2 years ago coming online and actually going to production, which is really exciting to see. And definitely more of the conversations that we have are much more meaningful. So you can see the market is coming and the understanding is coming, because I know the first few months I was here with Calls to Beyond, you're educating. You're telling them this is what a trust triangle is, and this is what an issuer is, and a holder is. And now, well, Richard, as he says it, you're getting people saying, I don't understand what my customers do. So you still have to educate a bit there. But more of the people we're talking to are coming in saying, yeah, we need credentials. We understand the space, at least to a certain degree. So there's less educating and more, when you get past education, you can actually talk about, okay, what are your problems? What are your pain points? How do we solve them? How do self-sovereign identity and verifiable credentials make your business better? And they're able to start answering that question. That helps us build a solution and make a deal with them, which is, I think, fantastic and really exciting to see.
Cheers, Mike. Yeah, excellent. And Elina, kind of shifting over to you, like I said, we'll kind of jump about a little bit as we go through this. What kind of commercial milestones would you like to kind of highlight? You're closest to that from our kind of part of the business. What would you like to highlight that you saw in the year to date for 2023?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So 2023 was a really big year for us in terms of commercial expansion. I think it was really the first year where we had really serious, numbers in terms of customers coming aboard, in terms of growing our revenue. We launched pretty much a new sales motion, and that, we saw that kind of take off more and more throughout the year. And we had multiple customers going into production every quarter. That was across industries. So industries like workforce compliance and training, recruitment, education, and healthcare. And what we mean when we say they went into production, I think, is really exciting to point out. It means they were actually issuing credentials to individual holders, whether it be their trainees, their customers, who were able to hold those in a wallet and use those for verification purposes. So we're actually seeing, real world usage of this technology, which to me is really cool to see. And I think that's just getting started for us. And just to highlight a few exciting partners, feel free to jump in as well, you guys, as everybody's kind of involved with all these partners. First one to bring up is Polygon. So Polygon ID, I think a lot of people have probably heard about. It's a network for issuing credentials and doing verifications. They heavily use zero knowledge proofs. And we started speaking to them pretty much exactly a year ago. And they actually came to us because they recognized the immense benefits that Doc could bring to organizations looking to work with Polygon via the tooling that we have that really makes it simple and easy to issue credentials, to adopt this technology. It kind of levels the playing field for organizations who might not have blockchain developers. They might not want to, hold crypto, all these things that create barriers for adoption. And so they came to us offering, asking if we could integrate with them. We went through kind of the work to do that and had a really big launch in July. So Nick and Mike, you were there at ETHCC in Paris presenting on stage a demo of the integration. And that followed up with commercial interest from some major organizations and a lot of usage by developers as well who want easy, quick ways to build their centralized identity apps.
We are super excited with the solution that Doc has brought and the integration that they have done with Polygon ID, just because you are giving the opportunity to developers that are joining, for instance, hackathons in a matter of minutes to set up their own issuer, create their own credentials, and start issuing credentials. That's just for hackers, but this doesn't end here. So you can use it and make it available for real use cases in the Web3 space and also in the Web2 space. So thank you very much for that.
I think it's just been a great partnership. they've been really helpful and supportive of us. And they do regular hackathons, and so every time they do a hackathon, we see a little bump up in usage, which is great because we know they're going to the participants of the hackathon saying, "Hey, if you guys want to get this set up quickly, come to Doc because Doc's got it figured out." And for me, leading the engineering team and the team that delivers that tools that they're using, it feels great to know that people are using it and they're finding it useful and as easy as we want it to be. So yeah, to me, it's been a great experience and good for us to learn as well.
I love how the Doc partnership demonstrates the vision of an open ecosystem. That our standard demo is our issuer and their verifier, and it's cross blockchains and it works. That's exactly the kind of solution we're trying to build.
Definitely good points there. And sharing kind of another really cool partner that we had go into production this year is Gravity South Africa. So this is a training provider who provides training for construction workers required to work at very large heights. So they recognize that there was a significant problem with workers using fake credentials.
We had a bit of issues with people falsifying our certificates, so that's quite of a big risk, not even for yourself but for us as well, because a person, if they falsify a document and they go to an employer and tell them, I'm competent to work at heights, but they don't really know what they were doing. They might have watched a YouTube video or played a game even, and they think that they can still do the job to the best of their knowledge, and he might get hurt. He's walking around with one of our certificates, so he's claiming that he came to one of our facilities for training, and that is one of our biggest challenges that we got. So, even if it's on a digital form, we had no way of verifying or making sure that this person didn't falsify documents, and for the employer as well, so that they know the person that's giving them a document or a certificate telling him he came to one of our facilities for training, that he actually came to us and he didn't just falsify the document. The verifiable credentials runs through a blockchain. So there's an easy way for us and for the employer, obviously, to verify that this document has not been falsified. That's already a big changer for us. And then if you'd look on how your certificate gets issued to you, there's many ways, obviously going through Doc, there's many ways that employers in general or clients that come to us for training where they can receive the documents to make sure something has not been falsified. And we've actually ran a few tests trying to falsify documents, and we tried to cheat the system and we couldn't. So this is such a big game changer for us.
And they really loved what they saw with Doc to be able to prevent those fake credentials, and as well as add a lot more efficiency to their process. So I believe they said that what used to take them an entire day to issue one credential, they can do in a few minutes now. So that is really cool, quantifiable value that we can point to that we're bringing with them. And they launched early this year and saw such great results that I think pretty quickly came back to us wanting to expand what their plans with us and to support their international expansion into new markets. So really, really cool example of, I think, a great use case for verifiable credentials and an organization adopting this, putting it out in the real world and seeing those benefits and seeing the new opportunities that it could bring them as well.
I wanted to go to South Africa and take their training, but Nick and Elina felt like there were better uses of my time than I could learn about the credential in a different way. But ropes training sounds lots of fun.
I think there's a good team building opportunity there for us next year.
Yeah, I can imagine you, Mike, being suspended way above the ground at this point.
And just to share kind of one third example of an organization that went into production this year is Burst IQ, which is a US-based company that provides an innovative platform for securing and managing sensitive data. They work primarily with healthcare organizations, but they also do work in workforce development and life sciences. They've been fans of Doc for years now. We've been speaking to them for years and kind of supporting them through their journey with adopting and rolling out verifiable credentials. So it's really, really exciting to see them push this out. They kind of did a softer launch this year, and I think it's going to be launched in an even bigger way next year. And what's great about Burst IQ is they're an example of a partner for Doc, who they work with a lot of kind of major healthcare networks. They work with the state of Colorado. So it's an opportunity for Doc's credentials to be used by these major organizations and to have a really strong partner in this industry who can help get that to these end kind of customers of verifiable credentials. So I think there's a lot more that we're going to see from them this coming year.
When we learned about Doc's interoperability, scalability, flexibility, and your amazing advanced privacy preserving strategies, we realized that Doc offered the complete package that we were looking for. So we had performed a very long and thorough search, and afterward, it was very clear that Doc would be the best partner for what Burst IQ anticipates will be a long relationship.
Yeah, we also recorded a really good, it's a really informative podcast actually with Wendy Charles, who was their Chief Scientific Officer. So if anyone listening is interested in finding out more about Burst IQ's use case, if you go into Identity 3 podcast, which you find on YouTube, Spotify, and a few other places, you can certainly get that a little bit more context about that.
Not to go on a tangent, but I think we should also mention the podcast this year. You've had so many good guests on there this year, and maybe I'll see like from someone else part later on, but I think it's just a good segue that it's been so good. And the frequency with which we've had people from all sorts of major organizations. I think it's been great, and it's been kind of great to see you, Nick, as a host, grow in the role as the years gone on too.
You got to say that, Mike, after the suspending you above the ground comment, but yeah, no, I think so, and I think it's I think the podcast as well, like we try to make it informative as well, so it's not really just about like putting our customers on there or like look at this amazing thing that Doc's done. It's very much about being informative. So even this past week, we've been picking out kind of organizations or individuals that we've come across from different walks of life, different perspectives on the identity industry, in order that we provide just lots of different ways of looking at the identity space and the credentialing space to people that listen in. So, but I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, good point, Mike. And just for anyone interested, the podcast, if you haven't checked it out already, it's called Identi 3, available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, I think other platforms as well. So definitely recommend checking that out. And just to kind of round out, kind of looking ahead into 2024, I shared a few examples from this year of kind of exciting customers coming into production. But we do have a lot more that's going to be kind of being rolled out in next year that's in the works right now, including a major U.S. university, a widely used e-learning platform, a national port authority, really interesting real-world use cases that we can't talk too much about yet, but definitely stay tuned as those go live. And I really believe 2024 is going to be one of the strongest years for Doc yet. I think we're going to see adoption at really kind of high levels like we've never seen before. And so really excited that we're at the forefront of being able to bring this to these organizations. And with that, Richard, why don't you share a little bit? I know you joined Doc in August, which doesn't sound like a long time, but I think in startup years or startup time, it can feel like a lot more than just a few months. So I'd love to hear what been your impression since you joined the team.
Yeah, it's great to hear as we reflect on 2023. I joined Doc because I like the team. It's fun to work with pleasant people, but also because I really buy into this vision for a SaaS platform that makes it easy for institutions and for organizations to work with verifiable data and integrate that into their business processes. What I didn't realize at the time was how complete the stack is. It's a full stack solution. And each of the technical pieces fit that. I was surprised to learn that our blockchain teams already implemented a lot of these cryptographic primitives that on other teams I was on, we were hoping to build, but here we've already got them. Substrate is a solid base to build these decentralized capabilities. The CERT's web interface is a really powerful interface for solution design It allows you to do a lot of complicated things in a visual way that makes it easy to onboard and explain to new developers how to create these solutions. Our non-custodial holder wallet is a real edges with the keys at the edge solution that allows people to own their credentials and manage them, and it's fairly easy to use, and we have a white label solution and we can embed it. That took a long time to build on other teams, and the people who are using these APIs regularly say, it's easy to issue, it's easy to verify, it makes sense, and taking them through the process, they pick it up pretty quickly. And this entire stack already benefits from feedback from people using it in production. And it's fun to see that level of real world, products always change when you start hitting reality. And we've already gone through some of that process. And Mike, I appreciate that the team already is comfortable supporting this 24/7. It's nice to know when we have these emergencies, there's processes in place. It's not the first time we've done this. That brings me much comfort when I'm talking to customers and working on the product plan. So yeah, I've really enjoyed joining Doc, not only because the vision, which is fantastic, but also to find we're further along than I expected when I joined. It's a really solid foundation for a 2024 becoming the best year that Doc's ever had, and I'm excited to be part of that team. Now, I was very surprised, Mike, as I was looking at your list of accomplishments for your team this year, how much of that was 2023. A lot of these things I thought had been around longer. Why don't you take us through the list of accomplishments your team can brag about this year?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, as you say, we have a full stack. And at the end of 2022, you could argue we sort of had a full stack. We had certs, we had the API, we had the wallet. They didn't really play together as well as you would have liked at that point. So I think one of the early themes for 2023 was the integration between our own tooling to make sure it was smoother and easier to use. So one of the first things we started working on was the idea of it being able to issue from certs or the API directly into the holder wallet. So you get rid of the need for QR code scanning and clumsy passing files around and that kind of thing. So that was a major piece for us, was be able to just, as soon as you say issue this credential to this DID, have it magically show up in that person's wallet, was a major thing for us as far as making usability and much simpler to use. So once we had that, that was great. But then we were in a situation, well, what if we don't know information about the holder and the issuer needs a little more information about the holder before they can issue the credential? How do you do one of that? So then we started working on this flow, which we called an issuance request flow, where the issuer can say, these are all the details I have and these are the details I need, and then the holder can scan a QR code and provide those details and then get a credential issued automatically to the wallet. So sort of tying up that issuance piece to make it a much smoother thing to connect the holder and the issuer together in a much more seamless way, and just make everything just simpler in the way you think it should work. Make it work that way. So that was a really big piece. And then the next part of sort of rounding out that trust triangle thing was the verification piece. So we already had, again, some tooling that would allow you to do verification if you had a JSON file or something. But again, that's not user-friendly. Not many people know what they're doing when you start talking about JSON files. Like, I'm sure people watching this are going, Mike, when you're talking about what's a JSON file? It doesn't really matter. It's just a representation of the data. So we built in, again, the idea of having the verifier be able to define what they needed from someone. So, what credentials they needed to be, like a university degree or a birth certificate or whatever type it is, and then what attributes of that degree they care about. So if they need a date of birth, they needed a date of graduation, whatever the details might be they want. To be able to define those so that when a holder is then ready to do something with that credential, so say, maybe I want to show I'm old enough to get into a casino or something like that, they could scan one of these verification templates, again, QR code, and then in the phone, in the mobile wallet, go through, oh, you're asking me for my date of birth. Well, here's my credential as my date of birth. I'll send it to you. And then the verifier can say, okay, yeah, this person legitimately is old enough to come into this casino, and let them in. So it's, again, automating that flow back and forth between the verifier and the holder to make it simpler to do that, more seamless, one touch in your phone kind of thing as much as we can. So it pulled all those pieces together to really get that whole, the trust triangle complete between the issuer, the holder, and the verifier in automated ways using the tooling we had. So for me, that was the first half of the year, and that was very huge. Just to be able to say, yeah, we've got a product suite that you can use and that it satisfies the needs you need in a usable way. So that's one of my biggest things for this year, was sort of all that we did there. But of course, that's not all we did. We had a whole lot more going on. as you sort of alluded to there, Richard. So one of the big things in this space, and one of the most important things for anyone in this space, is the idea of privacy. So protecting the holder's privacy, allowing them to have control over who sees what data and when they see it, and that sort of thing. So we already had support for anonymous credentials and zero knowledge proofs by the end of last year, but it wasn't fully rolled out through our product. So this year we brought it into the API more fully. We brought it into the mobile phone and the wallet app. So now when you are presenting that verification your data for verification, you can choose. Do I actually want them to see my date of birth, or do I just want them to see that I am actually over the age of 18, if that's what they need? And it gives you so much more power as an individual to sort of be able to say, yes, here's the information you need from me that you can trust, but you don't need to know the specific details about it. And it gives so much more power back to the user and to the holder. And I think as this industry grows and as we go forward, I think it's a major thing that we get away from the honeypots of data and the data mining on individuals and all that kind of thing. So I think being able to support zero knowledge proofs with the things like range proofs and selective disclosure and all those sorts of functionality that we have now is massive, and it really does expand what we can do and the use cases we can support, and helps reach that goal, the dream of where we're all trying to get to for self-sovereign identity and individual control of their information. So to me, that's another one of the major things that we're doing, and I think it's helping us achieve our goals. Now, beyond that, Elina already sort of mentioned the Polygon ID thing. We did work towards more interoperability pieces. That's obviously a very big, obvious interoperable piece we've done, but we've also done more work around some of the standards we support around, what types of verification things we do. Some of that sort of thing. We've worked on bringing more of those standards in, and we're going to keep working towards more standard support as we go forward. But that I think is important too, to make sure that while we're busy doing our own thing, and I was just talking about how great it is that our own tooling all talks to each other, which is great, as we go forward, talking to other tools, other systems will be important too. So making sure we're not forgetting that is important too. So we have continued working down that path as well. And then going forward, even more sort of to what Richard was saying with customers being on board and giving us feedback, it's really opened up our eyes to some features that maybe we weren't sure we needed, or we didn't know if we were going to do it right away. And we're like, no, we had customers asking for these. So some of those sorts of features that were really customer requests are things like team management. So the idea that if you have an organization come in, they won't just have a single individual using our system or configuring things in our system, that they'll have a team, and those teams need to be able to work together on common schemas and design templates and that kind of thing. So bringing team management was a big goal for this year, and a big thing that came from user feedback. We also have the idea of sub-accounts. So for a customer like VersaIQ, which you mentioned earlier, they can have their main account, which is them, but then if they've got customers of theirs who want to be represented individually within our system, they can create those as a related sub-account, which is really cool functionality as well. That was really important to get out. And then some other added extra things we did was we added the ability to define a schema sort of visually through UI. So data schemas are the way you define what data is in a credential. It can be kind of complex, and if you have to deal with it by hand, it's painful. I don't like doing it myself. So we built a tool just to make it nice and simple to sort of say, yeah, I need you to be able to have a date of birth in here. I need you to have this date or this time or whatever details are in there, names, whatever included in there defined well. So having that tool, I think, just makes the entire system easier to define, easier to manage, and easier to understand what you're dealing with. So I think those are sort of some highlights for me. We've done a whole lot this year. We did a lot in the year before, we did even more this year, I think. It's kind of amazing to see what the team can accomplish. I'm really proud of the team of what we built. But I know we're not done. We got a lot to go. And I think, Richard, I'm going to throw it back over to you to sort of talk about what the vision is and where we're going next year.
Thank you. And is you mentioned getting feedback from customers who want to onboard their customers. That's going to take some thinking about how we manage that experience in our platform. We're going to spend some time there. Elina mentioned some of these customer projects that we're looking forward to completing, that we can announce in the future. But it's caused us to focus on improving the usage of our products in regulated industries at scale. So we got to do a lot of under the hood work for that. Infrastructure improvements, being able to prove that our product scales and is supportable and resilient to the effect that these customers are confident moving to production. And as well as continuing to refine that user experience, our APIs, responding to feedback on how we can make things even easier to use, especially when you're doing a complicated setup. And our mobile SDKs, of course, making it easier to embed those into a third-party wallet so our customers they have their existing apps, and we want to make it easy to add credential capability to those apps. Now, that's a lot of work, even when we talk about in vague terms. I can see Mike starting to sweat a little bit as we talk about some of these things. In our public roadmap, we listed some features we're excited about, but we want to make sure we focus on getting these customers to production first. So delegation, which is really useful for staff credentialing, traceable credentials, which is really important for supply chain use cases, CIRCOM proofs that allow you to do really complicated proof. It's a language that lets you do really complicated proof scenarios. Those features we're excited about, we still want to do. We've started them, but we're going to make sure we get these current projects to a public release before we come back to those. Now, there's another project we had on the roadmap, which is our Ethereum bridge, and that deserves a little more explanation. It's a cool technology. We got it working, and we're excited about it, but recent hacks of crypto bridges do make us pause and say, we got to get through a security review. Is it really going to provide enough value to be worth the potential security risks? We're not going to move forward until we're confident that it's not going to undermine the security of the token. So it's still there. We still intend to move it forward when the timing is right and when there's demand and when we can better see how other crypto bridges have worked in the industry. At that point, we'll be a lot more confident that we're doing this in a way that keeps everybody, all of our token holders, safe and supports that underlying chain, the blockchain that underpins everything. Now, those roadmap items I listed that we're postponing, that does give us time to work on some new features. And I'm really excited, but I'm going to pause and save that for the roadmap update in January. But we've been working on a lot of stuff we're excited to share. So we're gonna let everybody enjoy their holiday season in January. We'll kick off the new year with some exciting announcements. And you're gonna see 2024. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, nice cliffhanger there, Richard.
Yeah, cliffhangers. You're teasing everyone. So yeah, stay tuned. Come back.
Exactly. Next week, you'll find next month on the same channel, you'll get to hear some what we got. We're going to go through the roadmap in more detail, and I expect you'll find when we talk about 2024 being the best year ever, you'll see why we're claiming that. Nick, is there anything about our plans for 2024 that you want to emphasize? Yeah,
well, I don't want to do any more teasing, Richard, because I think you've done that sufficiently well for all of us, but I do know that some of those big features that we mentioned, they will, at least from my perspective, I think they'll be like really strong differentiators for us in the markets that we choose to serve, and so they will make us stand out from the crowd, and they will actually, I think, be delivered in the first half of the year. So hopefully people won't have too long to wait for them to find out what they are. And I think because they are such strong differentiators, that I think that's what's making me very excited for 2024 as we start to kind of get towards the end of this year. But yeah, generally, like I said, like all the kind of the macroeconomic factors I mentioned at the start, like all of the government activity, all of the kind of large enterprise activity, this seems to be, and also like Elina mentioned, coming from multiple different angles, that's going to hopefully kind of put a shot in the arm into the industry and really kind of get that adoption that we're all waiting for. And it will hugely assist growth in this space. So if 2023 was great, I think 2024 is going to be even better. And I'd like to take this opportunity actually to thank not just you guys, because we don't often get the time just to sit around like this. So I wanted to thank you all for your tireless hard work, and really for the rest of the Doc team as well. So we're supported by another kind of 15 team members that help to make us look maybe good. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but they certainly put in a lot of work, and they make the whole Doc machine move as well as it does. So thanks to all of them as well. And of course, customers and partners, customers for putting all those kind of the trust and faith in us that we can help them with their business. That really does mean a lot. And as a startup, it can sometimes be a bit of a leap of faith, but we hope that we're repaying them with all the kind of hard work and making sure we're providing them value. The last thing I would say before kind of passing it over is really to thank everyone in the community of Doc. So we have a bunch of kind of validators that without whom the network would not exist. So they each like make sure that the blockchain behind Doc runs efficiently and it runs well. We have stakers in the token community that basically help with the security of the network, the vote and governance features, and they really keep the oil in that engine for sure. But we wanted to wish everyone kind of happy holidays, and we wish you all the very best for the coming year.
Likewise to you, Nick. Thanks for all your hard work leading the team. I think we came a long way this year. And I echo everything you said too, as well, to our customers, to our team, and to the community.
Thank you. I'm glad to be part of this team. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and I fully echo all those sentiments. It's a great team to be a part of, and I think we're doing great things together, and certainly our community is a huge part of that. So yeah, thank you to everyone, and we'll see you in 2024.